بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على عبد الله ورسوله نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. So inshallah ta'ala, this Friday night reflections is a continuation from some of the work we started at Kalima's spring camp. So recently Kalima had a spring camp, #United, which was held in Dubai, and we took a group of 13, well, supposed to be 13 to 19-year-old boys on a 5-day camp. And the purpose behind this was what can be generally summarized by the term tarbiyah, trying to instill in them the right learning of Islam, the right manners, the right understanding. And it's fair to say that when they first came, most people did not want to come. And most of the guys who came were not there willingly. Some were, but most had been put under pressure by their parents to come. But generally, a lot of people, by the time they left, they really enjoyed the whole experience, and we learned a lot. But one of the things that we wanted to do is to extend an opportunity for question and answers, because there were a lot of questions during the camp we could not answer. So I have a collection here, and then we said we would open the floor inshallah for people to ask also, inshallah ta'ala. Perhaps also I will summarize some of the findings on behalf of the parents that we talked about in the camp. One thing that I will give you just a word of warning before we start is that these are genuine questions from 13 to 9-year-old kids, so we will try to keep them as clean as possible, but at the end of the day they are what they are. And if we get a sensitive question, we will try to word it in the most sensitive way possible, but we advised before starting the class that it may not be suitable for much younger children. If there are some topics here that are quite serious, and some of them are quite important and quite mature topics. We dealt with most of the most serious ones during the camp, and these that were left were general questions that people had. But these are just as deserving of being answered as the other ones are, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, so we think this is important for us to try to answer whatever we are able to answer, inshallah. So these are a wide variety of questions on a wide variety of topics, but we'll take it as much as we can, and then we'll open the floor for people to ask questions, inshallah. So the first question we got from one of the guys at the camp: why is it wrong to curse when the person you're cursing is fine with it? So we know that some of the teenagers, they have an issue with cussing each other out, cursing each other, roasting each other, whatever they want to call it, where they insult and slander each other and they make fun of each other. But the argument is that, look, if we're doing this and the people are all doing it willingly, they're all doing it willingly, then what's wrong with it really? Isn't it just wrong if you're doing it unwillingly? I have two answers to that question. The first answer is, it's very, very rare, in my opinion, that the participants in this kind of cursing and shouting and calling each other names are doing it willingly. They might be doing it willingly by peer pressure, meaning that they think, they have to participate because of the other person. But really, who willingly wants to be insulted? Really, genuinely. Even the people saying it, sometimes it hurts. They don't want it to be said about them, or they don't want to say it themselves. So really, I would say, to say that everyone is happy is a bit of an assumption. It's a bit of a guess. It's like, okay, they don't mind, but really they feel pressured to take part in it. It's a peer pressure thing. It's not that they really don't mind. Who wants to be called names? The second answer is, even if everybody was happy with it, calling other people names and roasting them and whatever else you want to call it, is something which is haram in Islam. It's haram. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us a number of etiquettes in Surah Al-Hujurat, beautiful etiquettes. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la yaskhar qawmun min qawmin asa an yakunu khayran minhum. O you who believe, don't let a group of men ridicule another group of men, make fun of another group of men, thinking they're better than them. وَلَا نِسَاءٌ مِّن نِسَاءٍ عَسَىٰ أَن يَكُنَّ خَيْرًا مِّنْهُنْ. And don't let a group of women make fun of another group of women, thinking that they are better than them. وَلَا تَلْمِزُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ. And don't insult each other, call each other names. وَلَا تَنَابَزُوا بِالْأَلْقَابِ. And don't call each other bad names. بِئْسَ الْإِسْمُ الْفُسُوقُ بَعْدَ الْإِيمَانِ وَمَنْ لَمْ يَتُبْ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الظَّالِمُونَ. What a terrible thing it is to do such a disobedience to Allah after you had Iman. After you had Iman. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made this haram in itself. He didn't say it's okay when you all agree. He said it's haram to insult each other. It's haram to call each other names. And wallahi, even if one person agrees, even in the camp when it happened, there were people who didn't agree. And there were people in the camp who didn't agree to it. And even if some of the boys, 2 or 3 of the boys didn't mind, but some of the other boys got really upset. And they were saying some really, really hurtful things to each other as a joke, as a game. Like to see who can say the most hurtful thing about somebody else. But Allah made this haram. And if Allah makes something haram, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, it's haram to be bad to your parents. And then you say, okay, my dad says it's okay if I'm bad to him. And my parents tell me it's okay to be bad to them. So is it still okay? No, because Allah made it haram. It's not about you and your parents. It's not about huquq al-ibad, the rights of the people. It's about the rights of Allah and the rights of the people. So you can't just say the people are happy and that means it's okay. Because there's a right that's a right of Allah and there's a right that's the right of the people. So yes, if people are happy, you're fulfilling the right of the people. But if Allah is angry with you, then you're not fulfilling the right of Allah. So it's not okay to do something just because everybody else thinks it's okay. And you have to have Islamically a justification for doing it too. However, when something is purely a right of the servants, like for example, I owe you money, right? I owe you 100 dirhams. And you say to me, doesn't matter if you pay me back or not. This is okay. Why? Because this 100 dirhams is not a right of Allah. It's a right between me and you. And you told me you don't mind if I don't pay you back. So that's okay because this is a right between me and you. But this right of the halal and the haram, this is Allah's right. The Prophet ﷺ said, أَلَا إِنَّ لِكُلِّ مَلَكٍ حِمَى أَلَا إِنَّ حِمَى اللَّهِ مَحَارِمُهُ. Every king has a private land, private area. Do not cross, do not go. And the private land of Allah are the sins. And you're not allowed to go into the area where people do sins. So this is between you and Allah, not just between you and me or you and anyone else. And plus, like we said, if 2 people agree, the 3rd person will get hurt. You know, it's not the case that everybody agrees. And thirdly, we can say, what kind of thing does it say about a person that you agree for someone to insult you? What kind of izzah, what kind of honor and reputation you have that you don't mind a person to insult you and you don't mind to insult someone else also. So inshallah, this is an explanation of this question. Okay, another one. Is it allowed to read fiction novels when the author is not a Muslim? I think we could say, the first question we could ask is it allowed to read fiction novels? Full stop. Whether the author is a Muslim or not a Muslim. And then does it matter whether the author is a Muslim or not? I think first of all, to deal with the second part first, It's not whether the author is a Muslim or not a Muslim, but it's what the author writes. The author could be a Muslim and write about something very haram, or the author could be a non-Muslim and not write about that kind of stuff, right? So it's not really about who the author is, it's more about what the author writes. Because the author could be a Muslim and could write some pretty haram stuff, and the author could be a non-Muslim, but it could be quite okay, it could be quite gentle. However, there is another issue here. Are we allowed to read and to write fiction? Because reading and writing fiction is basically a lie. Let's be honest. What is a lie? A lie is, like they say in Arabic, a lie is al-ikhbaru khilaf al-waqi'. It's telling something which didn't happen. A lie is telling something which didn't happen. Okay, did this fictional story happen? No, this fictional story didn't happen. Okay. However, some of the scholars said, it is permissible as long as you state to people clearly that this is an imaginary situation and there is a benefit in it. And there is 2 times. They said, number 1, you tell people clearly that this is not true. For example, you say, imagine there was a boy, and this boy lived in a house, and the house, it had this and this, and then you tell the story. But you start the story by saying, and imagine that this happened. This did not happen. I'm telling you something. Imagine that it happened. And then secondly, that you have a benefit in what is like, for example, you have a moral or a lesson that you're teaching people. And some of the scholars, among them, as Shaikh Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala, they allowed fiction in this boundary. And number 1, that it's clear that what you're telling is you're not telling that 20 years ago there was a man who lived, because 20 years ago there wasn't a man, and that man didn't do what you're going to tell me. But you say, imagine if once there was a man that did this and did that and did this, and then you tell the story. And then secondly, you have a benefit in doing that. You're not just telling stories for the sake of telling stories. The worst of the people, from the worst of the people in the sight of, in traditional culture, in the early Muslims, were the storytellers. The one who is al-qas, and he just has al-qasas, and he's just tells stories to people. Because most of what they say is lying. So I don't personally agree really with reading fiction at all, unless it is fiction that has a clear benefit to it, like it has a clear moral and a clear lesson to it, and it's clear from the author that this never happened, and the author doesn't even make a claim that this happened. Then within this reason, it may be possible to read some fiction. As for when it's a non-Muslim, look, what kind of stuff? Not only are you reading a lie, but what kind of stuff are you reading about? Look, let's be honest again. If it doesn't have haram stuff in it, it's probably not going to be very interesting to read this fiction book. And if it doesn't have some haram stuff. And there's a lot of fiction that I'm scared about young people reading, to be honest with you. I'm pretty scared about. And it's not just I don't think the boys are reading too many of these lovey kind of romance novels, that's more for the girls, and the girls more tend to read their romance novels. I mean, maybe Allah musta'an, we got in this age where the boys started reading that too, but generally there's some stuff I'm scared about. And some of that stuff is things like them reading about magic. Magic is something very real. Magic is not Harry Potter. Any magic is about disgracing the name of Allah and disbelieving in the Quran and using filth and doing filthy, dirty things and worshipping the shaitan. But when you read these books, it's like magic is like the most beautiful thing. This little boy, he woke up one day and he just realized that he was a magician, and then he went to this amazing school where they all fly around on broomsticks and everything is nice and they all learn and they all work together to learn. What? Ibadatul shaitan, worshipping the shaitan. This is the essence, and you want to fly around on a broomstick, you have to worship the shaitan. You have to sit in your own filth. You have to disgrace the Quran. Is that worth it for flying around on a broomstick? No Muslim is going to say this. But these books make it beautiful. They don't tell you that half the time you fly around on the broomstick, and wallahi al-azim, I'm telling you the truth. Half of the time you fly around, the broomstick throws you off and you fall onto the floor. Because if you don't keep worshipping the shaitan will not keep doing things for you. So wallahi, these books, I'm scared. The other thing I've heard a lot of people reading lately that scares me is horror books. And why I don't like the horror genre generally, is number one, it has a lot of shaitani things in it. There's a lot of devils and a lot of evil and a lot of sins, a lot of people, slaughtering and killing without right and various things. But also horror books and horror movies make you scared of the shaitan. And wallahi, the worst thing you can find with regard to a Muslim protecting himself from the shaitan is to be scared of the shaitan. Isn't that why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, إِنَّمَا ذَلِكُمُ الشَّيْطَانِ يُخَوِّفُ أَوْلِيَاءَ فَلَا تَخَافُوهُمْ وَخَافُونِ إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. This is only the shaitan who makes you scared of his allies. Don't be scared of the shaitan, but be scared of Allah. And when you get scared of the shaitan, it pushes the fear of Allah out of your heart until you become scared of everything. Now I know the young guys who are listening to this, young teenagers, you think that you guys are mashallah, and you think you're strong, you think you're macho, you think you can handle it. But wallahi, the more of these horror movies you watch and the more of these horror novels you read, you will become scared of every single thing. You'll become scared of every bump that goes off in the night and everything that crawls, and ultimately the fear of Allah will just go. Whereas you see someone with the fear of Allah, wallahi, if you put him in a horror movie, he wouldn't even blink. He wouldn't even blink. Because he's not scared of anything in this dunya, except the natural fear that any human being has. But his fear is towards Allah, and he's scared of Allah. And that's what makes boys into men. That's what makes them into strong leaders that are not scared of anything except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Look at Umar ibn al-Khattab. He was so scared of Allah, he said, if on the day of judgment they announce everyone will enter Jannah except one person, I would say I am that one person who will not enter Jannah. And yet the shaitan used to run away from Umar ibn al-Khattab. And the shaitan from human beings used to run away. The Prophet ﷺ said, what is it with you, O Umar, that I see the shaitan, when you take a path, the shaitan crosses to take the other path. And you walk down the road, the shaitan takes the other road. This is fear of Allah, strength of Iman. And when you have that fear of Allah and that strength of Iman, everything is scared of you. And everything you have a hayba, and you have an aura around you. That people sit up and listen when you talk. And people are scared of your strength and scared of your commitment. But when you start watching and listening to these things and reading these books, you become like a little girl, and you become scared of every little thing that crawls along, and you become jumpy, and you become scared, and you become scared of the shaitan, and then the fear of Allah goes out of your heart, and then you just become like a shell. So it's very dangerous, this exposing the young people to these kind of things. If you want to, you're interested in the horror genre, come and sit with me. We'll talk about ruqya and the jinn, and we'll talk about magic, and we'll talk about the real horror genre. And trust me, the movies don't even come close, bro. What you see in the movies, this is man, we watch a clip from that and we say, well, I wish it was that easy. And you look at this, man, this is not real. And you want to see the real thing, Islam has the real thing. The real thing. But you have to have fear of Allah, because if you don't have fear of Allah, you'll not sleep for the next 3 months after you hear about this, or you see this with your own eyes. In front of you, you'll not sleep. You'll not be able to even function like a human being unless the heart has fear of Allah Azza wa Jal. Because ultimately you realize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who created that creation. And He is the one that can protect you from every harm. But subhanallah, you see how these horror movies, ultimately you watch them, and in your heart you still know they're not true. You get like jumpy, but you still know like it's just fake, right? There's just a guy who is making you jump, and they're making the camera zoom in and zoom out to make you get scared, or the book is making you scared and you read it in the dark with the lights off so that it gets more scary. But ultimately you realize it's fake. So come and join the real thing and see what it's really like. Then you will see, inshallah, and then you will also, and subhanallah, like you will appreciate the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and realize that, this these kind of books, they're dangerous, wallahi. They're dangerous. So that is a particular genre I'm scared about people reading a lot. Like horror movies, horror genre, like this kind of stuff. Because it leads people to lose the fear of Allah and to become scared of everything and anything else. Okay. Does the Quran say I don't even know what this word is, but I'm going to give you the gist of the question. Like it's written fine, I just don't know how you pronounce it. Does the Quran say that women are a place of cultivation, that men plow? A lot of kids, a lot of young people get exposed to shubahat, doubts around Islam. And with the age of social media, these doubts are spread faster and faster and more. And sometimes they come from atheists, sometimes they come from Christians, sometimes they just come from Muslims who don't know what they're doing. Muslims who don't know their religion properly. And so they like one of them will say on the other one to the boss, "Oh, do you know your Quran says this?" And especially the non-Muslims do this a lot. "I heard your Quran says this." First of all, we say to the young people, be proud of your deen. Your religion doesn't tell you anything that is embarrassing or anything that is untrue. Every single thing in Islam is beautiful. Every single thing has wisdom. Every single thing has a purpose. So what did Allah Azza wa Jal say about the women that this person is referring to? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, "Nisa'ukum حرث لكم فأتوا حرثكم أن شئتم وقدموا لأنفسكم واتقوا الله." Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, your women are a harth. A harth is a place where you plant a seed. This is al-harth, and when you have ground that you plant a seed and that seed grows to become something, this is called harth. A place where you plant a seed. And that is the reality of children. When people have children, and that is exactly what happens. So this description of the man and the woman is very, very accurate. And in terms of biology, in terms of the reality of life, نِسَاؤُكُمْ حَرْثٌ لَكُمْ. Because that is how a child is formed between a man and a woman. A part of the man and a part of the woman. So it is like the person who plants a seed in the ground. The seed is one part and the ground is the other, and it grows within. And the child grows within the womb of the mother, within the belly of the mother. So it's exactly like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَأْتُوا حَرْثَكُمْ أَنَّا شِئْتُمْ. So Allah Azza wa Jal gave some etiquettes as to how there should be intimate relations between husband and wife, and what you are allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave those etiquettes as well. And that makes perfect sense. So there's nothing in Islam that is strange or that is like, it doesn't make sense. That makes perfect sense. It's a perfect example of how children are born and how they come about. And I think that it makes a lot of sense when you understand it. But if somebody says, did Allah say that women are a field and men plow the field? No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave an example of a woman like the example of the seed that is planted, like the man that plants the seed in the field. And that at the end of the day, the child grows and so on. And this is a biological fact of life at the end of the day. But the example given in the Quran is very accurate and also very appropriate and also very, the wording used is very, very respectful. And you know, when you're talking about sensitive issues, what we tend to term the birds and the bees, like the issues of men and women and things like that, which some of the young people are aware of and some of the young people are not aware of, but a lot of the older ones will be aware of this. We don't in Islam talk in vulgar language. We don't use like bad words and rude words and talk about women as though they are like, some just object that you buy in the market and then you get what you want out of it and then you give it back. And Islam doesn't use rude words and crude words. Islam is very, very, very eloquent and very beautiful in the way this stuff is talked about. But it's in the Quran. And that's something that young people should also appreciate. That subhanAllah, we think that we have to learn this stuff from our friends at school. Or our friends will talk about it and they will say, look at this, watch this, do this. You don't need any of that. Islam tells you everything you need to know about relationships, about women, about men, about marriage, about whatever. Islam gives you the answer to all of that in a beautiful way that will never take away from somebody's, you'll never feel shy. You never read the Quran and blush. And you never read the Quran and think, wow, I wouldn't say that to my mom and dad. The Quran has a beautiful, soft way of explaining these issues, but it explains them clearly. So these adult issues, which I'm not going to go into too much now because we have a mixed age group, but these really adult issues, and if you want to talk about them, we can make a class at Kalima, inshallah. We can make a sitting and we can go and talk about what's allowed and what's not allowed for the older ones who are getting to that age where this is a big issue for them and they want to know. And maybe they've heard some things from their friends about what their friends think is good and not good. But at the end of the day, Islam has an answer to everything, and Islam tells you what is, and Islam legislates, or Islam gives you rules about every kind of relationship. Between husband and wife, relationship with your business people, relationship with your friends, relationship with your neighbors, relationship with your parents. Islam tells you everything about being a human being and about how you interact with other people, including stuff that happens between husband and wife. And Islam gives you everything you need to know in a way that is easy to understand and is not going to take away or is not going to make you feel shameful or have anything wrong in it. And mashallah, Christianity has a problem in this. Because in Christianity, everything is under the table. You don't talk about stuff like this because it's all haram. Okay, if it's all haram, how did we all end up here? It doesn't make any sense. If it were, and it's the strangest thing. But they bury it under the table, and then young people go out and look for information elsewhere. And they get haram information, and then they go and they use that haram information in a haram way. And that's not right. Islam has the answers to the questions you have, but you have to find the right place to ask those questions. And sometimes you go to your Islamic teacher, just ask privately. And so that the other people, maybe they're not at the same age as you, they're not thinking about those things right now. So you can ask those issues privately. And alhamdulillah, in the camp, there was a good chance to ask, and a lot of those questions came about. Alhamdulillah, we answered them as best we could. Okay. How do you bring back people that have been addicted to non-Islamic behavior? So you got some people who have got like some really bad habits. Mentioned here gambling, other things. And subhanAllah, you'd be surprised at how much the young people today at 14, 15 years old are involved in. How do you bring somebody back? Well, you have to realize that people are misguided through two things. People go wrong because of two things: shahawat and shubuhat. Shubuhat are confusion in knowledge, right? They think it's right, but it's wrong. They don't really know that it's wrong. They're kind of confused about what's right and wrong, or they didn't think it was a big sin, or they didn't think that what they were doing was really bad, or they didn't realize fully what the punishment is in Islam. So that's one thing. And how do we deal with this knowledge? We teach them about Islam. We teach them, you know what it is? Do you know how serious gambling is? Do you know how wrong gambling is? Do you know why gambling is wrong? Do you know that you can never beat the house? And whatever you gamble, you'll always lose in the end. And you can never possibly win, you'll always lose. Even if you win for a short time, the behavior will come back and you will lose it after a while. And that this is wasting the blessings that Allah Azza wa Jal gave, and that it causes hatred, it causes lying, it even causes crime, because people steal and lie and cheat other people to get money to pay for their gambling. So you give them knowledge, okay? But that's only one side of things. The other side is shahawat, desires. So the guy says, look, I know it's haram, and I know it's a waste of money, and I know I shouldn't be doing it, and I know it's just wrong, I don't want to do it, but it's just my heart is telling me, I just enjoy it, I get a thrill out of it. And that is a different issue completely. We got to deal with that issue totally separately. So one, you deal with knowledge, Islamic knowledge. The other one, you deal with al-hikmah wal-maw'idha al-hasan, through wisdom and through the way that you give them the message, the way that you teach them, the way you tell them. You give them some, some fear of Allah, some thinking about who is Allah, about the akhirah. And one of the best things you can do to bring someone back is work on their prayer. Because if a person prays 5 times a day properly, inna as-salata tanha 'anil fahsha'i wal munkar, prayer stops you from immorality and wrongdoing. So first of all, identify where's the problem. Is it they don't know it's haram, or they know it's haram but they just love doing it? If they just love doing it, then work on the prayer and the attachment to Allah. Because once you know who Allah is, and once you get attached to Allah, you don't want to do these big haram things, because you know how bad it is. And just provide positive peer pressure. Those of you who went to the camp will remember I usually talk about this. Positive peer pressure. And putting pressure on people to do the right thing, not putting pressure on people to do the wrong thing. Say to them, man, why are you doing that, man? Forget about that. Come out with me. And then when they come out with you, you give them positive peer pressure. And you put pressure on them not to do it, instead of pressure on them to do it. What should we do when we deal with bad people? What should we do when we deal with bad people? This is a good question. And this is something that the older you get, the more you need it, right? Because as you get older, you're dealing constantly with people who are not treating you well. And trust me, you get to uni, it gets worse. You get to office and work, and it gets 10 times worse than it was in uni. You're full of dealing with people who don't treat you well. And generally, even in the best job, your colleagues might treat you well, but the people who come in to face, they don't treat you well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you the formula to get out of this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَلَا تَسْتَوِي الْحَسَنَةِ وَلَا السَّيِّئَةِ إِدْفَعْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ فَإِذَا الَّذِي بَيْنَكَ وَبَيْنَهُ عَدَاوَةٌ كَأَنَّهُ وَلِيٌّ حَمِيمٌ وَمَا يُلَقَّاهَا إِلَّا الَّذِينَ صَبَرُوا وَمَا يُلَقَّاهَا إِلَّا ذُو حَظٍّ عَظِيمٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, good deeds and bad deeds are not equal. Respond to them in the way that is better. Treat them better than they treat you. They speak to you badly, speak to them with good words. They curse you, say something nice in return. And say, Allah forgive you. They treat you badly, treat them well. What will happen? In the beginning they might not accept it from you. But slowly, as you keep on doing this, Allah said, the one that you have hatred, enmity between you and him will become like a close friend. The guy that was your worst enemy will become your close friend. You just have to keep on treating them well in the face of what they do to you. They keep on doing stuff to you, just keep on treating them well. But most people can't do it. وَمَا يُلَقَّاهَا إِلَّا الَّذِينَ صَبَرُوا. Only the people who have patience will be the people who are able to do that. So it's learning to treat people well even when they treat you badly. But there might be a follow-up question. Somebody might say, but if they treat me badly, what's the point in me treating them well? Why should I bother? The answer is, you will get ذو حظ عظيم, a huge حظ, a huge reward from Allah for doing that. And in the end, all of those bad relationships and bad people will just go out of your life. They'll either get so sick of you, they'll just leave you alone, or they'll change into good people who you can have a good working relationship and friendship with. Okay. Is it okay for your parents to hit you a lot? And are you supposed to be forced into something you don't want to do? That's one of the tough things about being a teenager. I think these questions are amazing, by the way. They're really amazing. Are you supposed to be forced into doing something you don't want to do? The answer to that's a little tricky. It's kind of yes and no. In Islam, if someone has authority over you, they have the authority to tell you what to do. So for example, my boss at work has authority over me, and he has the right to tell me what to do. If he tells me I have to come and give a lecture at 9 o'clock, even though I would have liked to give the lecture at 7 o'clock, I have to go give the lecture at 9 o'clock. So in some ways, he's kind of forcing me to do it. But ultimately, these things will always exist in your life. You'll never have a situation, or almost never, where you have nobody who is telling you what to do. You know, as a young person, you feel like, oh, my parents tell me what to do. But you go to school, your teachers tell you what to do. And you go to uni, your professors tell you what to do. You go to work and your boss tells you what to do. And after all of that, your parents still tell you what to do. Even when you get to 25, 30 years old, they still tell you what to do. So ultimately, you can't get out of that. That's how humans work. And when you're older, eventually you'll have kids, inshallah, and you'll tell your kids what to do also. That's just how stuff works. That's how life works. But it's better not to force someone. It's better to explain to them why. Because look, let's be honest. Your parents don't torture you for no reason. You know, like they don't want to just torture you. Nobody's parents want to just torture them. I promise you that, right? Like it might seem like that sometimes, but nobody's parents really want to like torture them. They believe it's the right thing. And guess what? They could be wrong. Newsflash, your parents could be wrong. Because ultimately, parents are human beings too. And sometimes I tell my kids to do something, and sometimes when I tell my kids to do something, it's not right. It's actually wrong. But Allah told us that we have to listen to them in what's good. So nobody really should put a gun to your head and say, you must do this. But at the same time, you can't escape. You can't run away and escape from people telling you what to do, because that's just how life is. You'll never be able to get away from it. Even when you get away from it for a minute, it'll come back to you in your next stage in life. 2 years down the line, it'll come back to you. What does help though is having a really good relationship with your parents. Because the better the relationship is, the more you can say to them, really? Do I really have to do that? Do you think that that's the best way? Because I was thinking I would do it this way. What do you think? And if you have that relationship, your parents will actually appreciate it, and they'll actually talk to you directly, and there'll be no problem. But when you have that, I love the way the poet describes it. He says it's like the ram that hits its head off a mountain. You imagine a sheep with horns, and it just keeps on hitting its head off a mountain. The poet said, "O ram, be merciful to your head, don't be merciful to the mountain." It doesn't matter how many times you hit your head off the mountain is not going to go away. So it doesn't matter how rebellious you behave towards your parents, and trust me, I've been there, I've done it. I've been 10 times more rebellious than the most rebellious one of you. But ultimately you're hitting your head against the mountain. The mountain is not going to move, you're just going to get a sore head. So the better thing is, stop hitting your head against the mountain and start just working out how to climb it. And you start just working out, okay, with your parents, let's work out on having a good relationship so that they listen to me and I listen to them. But ultimately, at the end of the day, when your parents tell you what to do, it's a fact of life and a fact of Islam that you have to do it. If you've got a good relationship, for example, if you have a good relationship with your boss at work, you can say to him, really, you know what it is? How about we move this class? Let's not make it 9 o'clock. Let's make it 8 o'clock. Say, okay, why not? Because you have a good relationship. If you don't have a good relationship and you just go, no, I'm not doing it, then he'll go, yes, you are, otherwise you're fired. And then that's the end of it. And you end up in the same rut. It's the same with your parents. If your answer to everything is, I'm not doing it, then their answer is going to be, yes you are, no, yes you are, yes. And then eventually you're going to end up doing it anyway, trust me. Because ultimately they're just going to twist you until you have no choice. But if you have a good relationship with them, you could suggest something, an alternative, and they might go for it. But it's all about having that good relationship with them. Are parents allowed to hit their children? No parent is allowed to hit their children badly, severely. And it's the same like the Prophet ﷺ said, ضَرْبًا غَيْرَ مُبَرِّحٍ, a hitting that doesn't leave any redness. And nobody is allowed to hit on the face. It's haram to hit on the face. Whether you're hitting your friend or whether your parents are hitting you or anything else. And it's haram to hit that leaves a mark, like it leaves a red mark of a hand on you. And it's better not to hit anyone at all. But it's allowed for a parent if they take 2 fingers and they, like this, don't do that again. But it should be like that. It should not be harder than that. If it's harder than that, then it's haram. And really, if it's got to the stage, to this person who asked this question, if it's got to the stage where your parents hit you a lot, really you need some help to fix that relationship, because that relationship is a bit broken. Because it's like they can't communicate to you. They don't know how to express to you what they want to say. So the only way they know how to say is just to hit. That's wrong. That should not be done. So reach out to your Islamic teachers, reach out to me at Kalima, come and talk to me privately. Inshallah, we'll work it out. We'll work a way to talk to your parents to stop them hitting you all the time. Because there's no benefit in a person hitting like this. It's haram to hit on the face, it's haram to leave a mark. It's disliked to hit anybody at all. The Prophet ﷺ never raised his finger to a woman, nor to an animal, nor to a child, nor to a servant. And he never raised his hand to his servant, he never raised his hands to his wives, he never raised his hands to his animals. That's how we should be. But if a parent gives you a little bit of a tap on the hand, and that's not haram, but it's not the best way of dealing with things. And you've got to ask yourself, if you're getting beats every day, you've got to ask yourself why. And probably it's because your parents feel they're out of control. Really, because as a parent, when you feel like you're out of control, what do? Raise the hand. Because you've got nothing left. You don't know what to say. You don't know how to say it anymore. You don't know how to talk to them. They're not listening to you. Then you get more and more angry, and they're still not listening to you. So you don't know anything else. Just take my hand and beat him down. But that's not the answer. The answer is to fix the relationship so that you can talk to each other and you can get over this problem, inshallah ta'ala. If someone is lazy, I'm going to make this as generic as possible. If somebody is lazy, how can they overcome it? Wallah, it's a big problem. In fact, one of the number one things we had complaints in the camp was laziness. People saying that we felt like we're really lazy and we struggle. And there's a couple of things you need. Number one, you need to recognize that laziness is a habit. The more lazy you get, the more lazy you become. And one day you just work to get your work done, and alhamdulillah, and after that, for the next 2-3 days, you're not lazy in anything. Like, it's amazing. It's like you just need to get a bit of motivation. So there's 2 or 3 things I would advise. Number one, do your adhkar in the morning and the evening, especially dhikr to keep away laziness. Like أصبحنا وأصبح الملك لله والحمد لله لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد وهو على كل شيء قدير. And a part of the dua that we say, ربي أعوذ بك من الكسل ربي أعوذ بك من الكسل وسوء الكبر. Oh Allah, I seek refuge from laziness. And from this is that you say, اللهم إني أعوذ بك من الهم والحزن ومن العجز والكسل ومن البخل والجبن ومن ضلع الدين وغلبة الرجال. This is a beautiful dua. These basic simple du'as you say, subhanallah, this dua can completely change you. Just saying this dua, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-hammi wal-hazan wa min al-ajzi wal-kasal wa min al-bukhli wal-juban wa min dala'i ad-dayn wa ghalabati ar-rijal. Everything bad that could happen to you in your life is in this dua to keep it away from you. O Allah, I seek refuge from sadness and depression, anxiety and depression, and from laziness and inability. What does that mean, laziness and inability? When you're too lazy to do it, or when you really can't do it, and you just can't do it, you can't make any progress. And stinginess and cowardice, like being stingy, you don't share with people, you don't give people. And being cowardly, and you're too scared, you're scared of everyone, you're scared to stand up for your rights. And from a debt you can't pay back, and from being overpowered by men, having somebody force you down and force you into doing something. So this is a beautiful dua. Beautiful dua. Small dua, you can say it once or twice a day. Khalas, inshallah, that will help you a lot with the laziness. Number 2, try to use as many tricks as possible to remind yourself that delaying your work and being lazy in it doesn't help. It makes you feel worse. Actually, what happens is you think it makes you feel better. You get a bit of a high off of it, and you think it makes you feel better by just not doing it and put it away. But actually, once you start doing your work, you actually feel much better about it, and it gets done quickly, and you can get on with your work in the day. So one of the things is working after Fajr. You can get as much done in 2 hours after Fajr as you can get done in 6 hours after that, easily. 2 hours after Fajr, you can get so much done. Now I know some of you at school and some of you can't work in that time, but whatever Allah makes easy. But the early morning, getting more stuff done in the early morning, then leave the afternoon to relax. Leave the evenings to relax, inshallah. But don't leave your work until the evening, because you're less productive in the evening than you are in the morning. Look up tips for productivity. There's some great Islamic tips. Type in Muslim productivity or Muslim productivity. And there's some really cool tips available on how to be more productive and how to get more out of your time. Because ultimately, what do we want to do? We want you to get so that you get the most time to play and relax and have fun as possible. But you still have to get your work done. So you learn to be quicker and get it done quicker and better, so that inshallah you can spend the rest of your time to relax, inshallah. In terms of laziness in the prayer is a habit. Habits take time to form. About 30 days for a person to build a habit. It takes about 30 days, roughly, to build a habit. 30 to 40 days of doing something every single time. So look, for example, Ramadan is coming up. Almost everyone is going to pray, inshallah, 5 times a day in Ramadan. Okay? Almost everyone's going to pray 5 times a day. All you got to do is keep it going after that. Because you've got your training period, 30 days, you built your habit. Now just keep your habit going. But if Eid day you stop praying, that's a problem, because if you stop praying on Eid day, that means that you've broken the habit. Now you have to do another 30 days to get back in the habit again. So Ramadan's a beautiful chance to build good habits. But even generally, talk to your parents about, look, get me up for Fajr. Get me up early. Let me just pray. And just pray, do your prayers. Don't pray like 20 rak'ah for Isha. Just pray your 4 rak'ah to start with, and go play, go have fun. At least you're doing your fard. Because so many people, their parents are like, look, you got to pray 2 sunnah, then 4 isha, then 2 sunnah, then 2 nafal, then witr, then something tahajjud, then 2 rak'ah after witr, then something else. And the kid is praying like 20 rak'ah for isha. And then they say, my kid's not regular in his prayers. And you start him off with what is easy. Start him off with the fard. And also look at what is distracting you. So if it's the PlayStation, and that's what keeps you away from the salah, just tell your parents, look, just come in, take the control off me, put it on pause, and I'm going to go pray. I promise when you come back, the game will still be there. Inshallah, it will not have gone anywhere. And when you press the pause button, it pauses. Okay, maybe you're playing your friends live. Okay, no problem. 1 game will go, 2 games will go. Then khalas, they will still be there because they play all night and all day anyway. So you only missed 1 round or 1 game or 1 whatever it is. And inshallah, you come and pray. And if you have wudu, you're ready for the prayer anyway, just press pause, stand up, pray in your place, go back. Then slowly you work on going to the masjid and coming back, and you build from there, inshallah, little bit by little bit. But what matters for me is 5 daily prayers in the masjid. That's your aim. And trust me, the game will still be there. Plenty of people will still be playing at the same time. Just put it on pause, go pray, come back, take it off pause, and carry on, inshallah ta'ala. But the main thing is that you learn that you don't get anything out of delaying. You still have to pray. So you delay, then you rush your prayer, you feel terrible. Just put it on pause, pray at the earliest time. What did I say? The early time has barakah. So pray at the earliest time, you'll feel like you have loads of time left. Pray at the end of the time, you feel like, oh man, another prayer just came, I just prayed. What do you mean it's Maghrib? I just prayed Asr. But if you prayed Asr at 4 o'clock, you had ages until Maghrib to play. So try and get the habit of doing it at the earliest possible time. What's your opinion on having girls for friends? It really doesn't work. It really, really doesn't work. Because ultimately, look, fact of life is boys or men are attracted to women and women are attracted to men. If it doesn't start at whatever age, it will start the year after that. Maybe at 13 you don't see it. Maybe at 14 you'll see it. Maybe at 15 you'll see it. But ultimately, if you develop that habit, when you get to 15 and you start thinking about those girls in a different way, or 14 you start thinking about those girls in a different way, you're going to dump all your friends and tell them, I can't be your friend now because I kind of see you a bit differently. The reality is it doesn't work. What works is for the guys to be friends with the guys, for the girls to be friends with the girls, and then for the guys who want to have a relationship with the girls to get married. That's what works. Okay. So as we said, it doesn't work. And maybe if you're young, it's hard to appreciate that a little bit. But trust me, it will just get you in so much trouble when you're older. It's so much better that you just avoid it from the beginning. It's about good habits. Because if you get into those bad habits, I promise you, it might be 14, it might be 15, it might be 16, but you're going to put yourself in a really, really bad situation you're going to really regret. And trust me, from a lot of brothers who have been through that and had that experience, you will regret it. So it's much better that you don't put yourself through that experience in the first place. You don't allow yourself to fall into that experience in the first place. By just keeping it simple. The guys with the guys and the girls with the girls. And even the guys know, even if you don't feel that full attraction yet, you still show off in front of the girls, man. All the guys, every guy shows off. When a girl walks in the room, khalas, straight away, he starts showing off. That's part of how Allah created you. It's like about you trying to compete for a partner, like trying to be attractive to the opposite gender. At the end of the day, doesn't work. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala legislated for the guys to be friends with the guys and the girls to be friends with the girls. And then when they get older, you get married, and alhamdulillah, it solves the problem. Will Al-Imam Abu Hanifa come back on Yawm al-Qiyamah? Now I think the meaning behind that question is one of two things. I think first of all, maybe there's a bit of a confusion about who Al-Imam Abu Hanifa is. And maybe also the question is, will the Imams of Islam kind of lead their people Yawm al-Qiyamah? Maybe that is a question. So the people will be led Yawm al-Qiyamah by the prophets. They won't be led by the Imams of like the Madhab or the Shaykh or something like that. They will be led by their prophets, inshallah. They'll be led by their prophets, inshallah. So the people will not be led by like the Imams, not like the followers of Abu Hanifa will follow Abu Hanifa and the followers of Malik will follow Malik. No, the followers of the Prophet ﷺ will follow the Prophet ﷺ. As for Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala was one of the great scholars of Islam. He was not the only scholar of Islam. He was not right 100% of the time. He was not a prophet. He was not infallible. He was a great scholar from the scholars of Islam. Like every scholar in Islam, he got things right and he got things wrong. And like every scholar in Islam, he is not infallible. In terms of the Muslims, then there is no harm in a Muslim learning his curriculum. We call it a madhab. It's like a syllabus, his syllabus, if they want. But the reality is that when you realize something is from the sunnah, you have to follow the sunnah, even if it means you leave your imam and you leave your imam's ideas and his syllabus and his the things that he has told you. And even if you have to leave your imam, you have to leave your imam, because your imam is not what matters. What matters is following the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's what matters, following the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, in Jannah, will you love the things that you hate in this world? For example, you hate wine, but the wine of Jannah has an amazing taste. Will you still hate wine? The answer to that is, in Jannah, everything will be perfect. So you don't have to worry about hating anyone or hating anything, because Allah will take away from your heart anything which causes hatred or anything which you don't like. وَنَزَعْنَا مَا فِي قُلُوبِهِم مِّنْ غِلٍّ. We'll remove any jealousy and hatred from their hearts totally. So you don't have to worry. Plus, everything that's in Jannah, nothing is in Jannah that is in this dunya except names. They're just names. Wine is called wine, but it's not the wine of this dunya. The wine of this dunya smells like horrible and tastes horrible and gives you a horrible feeling, makes you sick, and makes you do embarrassing things that you would not normally like to do. The wine of Jannah is nothing like that. It's still wine, but it's totally different. So you don't have to worry about not liking anything in Jannah. And in Jannah, everything will be exactly as you wish it to be. And everything will be better than your wildest dreams. You know why? Because Allah knows your wildest dreams. Allah knows what those dreams are. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what those dreams are. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what those dreams are, then for sure Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to give you better than you could even dream of. Okay. 2-3 more questions, then we can take from the floor, inshallah. Normally I'm mild-tempered. However, with my siblings, I'm hot-tempered. What should I do? That's something a lot of people face, a lot of people go through, right? Because it's hard, right? It's like siblings are always in your face and they know exactly how to wind you up. They know exactly how to wind you up. So siblings require more patience than other people, because your friends only see you for a limited time and then they go. But your siblings are with you all the time. Plus, you choose your friends, but you don't choose your siblings, right? Like you chose your friends, but you didn't choose for this guy to be your brother, just that's how Allah decreed it to happen. I think first of all is, don't try to remember what we said about responding in a better way. Like, don't let them get to you. Be better to them than they are to you. Because at the end of the day, when you're close to your siblings, it's amazing. Like when you have close relationship with your brothers and sisters, it's really good. Like the whole house feels amazing. And when you have a bad relationship with them, the whole house feels bad. So you're going to be stuck with them for the next foreseeable future. So make the most of it. Try to respond to them in a way that's better. Also, don't let them see your anger, because when they see your anger, they're going to do it even more. Like especially when they see you getting angry and they see it's hurting you, like they're going to do it more. So don't let them see you get angry. If they don't see you getting angry, then inshallah, they will not, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, they won't do it again when they see that you don't get angry from it. No. Also, the tips that I said about controlling anger, maybe we're going to do another session on those separately, inshallah. But that's what I would talk about. Tips to control the anger, which I'm going to share with the students from the camp. I share it by email, inshallah. And don't let it show on your face, because when you let it show on your face, it causes them to do it more. And try to be better towards them than they are towards you, because that's what Islam tells you will bring about peace. And trust me, if you have a good relationship with them when you're older, you'll really appreciate it. Because having a good relationship with your siblings later on in life is very, very important. It's a very good thing. Okay, 2 more questions, 1 more question after this. How did you start da'wah? Okay, that's what's the short version of this in 1 minute, inshallah. So when I became Muslim, which I told the guys at the camp about how I became Muslim. If you haven't seen that, you can catch it on YouTube, inshallah. How I became Muslim. Well, I became Muslim, and then after that, of course, when you become Muslim, there's kind of an emphasis on you to kind of give da'wah, right? Because they're like, look, you became Muslim, so you want to try and help other people. So even before I went to Medina, one of the things that I was very keen to do, I was very, very keen to try to help people to understand Islam in my own little way. So in the beginning, you don't have a lot of knowledge. I didn't have like loads of knowledge about like Islam, but you just try and tell people what you know. You don't tell people what you don't know, because that's haram. You try and tell people what you know. So maybe you just know a few small things about Islam. You try and share those few small things with people. Then slowly you learn a little bit more and you share a little bit more. You learn a little bit more and you share a little bit more. And the same thing happened with me. I kept on learning and kept on sharing and kept on trying to learn a little bit more, read some books, listen to some tapes, then share a little bit more with people. And then a brother said to me, you know, why don't you go to the Islamic University of Medina? Why don't you go and learn Islam properly, and then you can really give da'wah in a really good way? And I was already, I'd already given a few small khutbahs, because the khutbahs in England are not like here where you have like a big masjid with the imam. Sometimes you just have like a small room with just a few people in. So I'd given like some khutbahs and I tried to do a little bit of basic da'wah for people. Then alhamdulillah, I went to Medina and I learned Islam there. And every year that I came back, I tried to do a little bit more da'wah each time. So every year I came back from Medina, I tried to do a little bit more. Then the next year a little bit more, then the next year a little bit more. And alhamdulillah, a lot of good people around me who helped me to be able to do that. And there's 2 videos you can watch to learn more about that. The first is how I became Muslim, which you can just search Muhammad Tim Islam. And the second one is my Memories of Medina video, where I talked about how I went to Medina, what I learned in Medina, and then coming out of Medina, what happened. So that inshallah will give people the full answer. This last question is important, and I'm going to answer it because I think it's genuine, and it's really important for young people today to understand this. The question is, how did ISIS start? How did Daesh start? This is important because our young people, right? They're connected to social media. They're seeing what is going on in the world. You can't hide it from them and say to them, no, you're 14 years old, forget about Daesh and forget about what's going on in the world and forget about this and that and the other. Reality is, it's all over. It's all over Facebook, it's all over YouTube, it's all over Instagram, it's everywhere. You can't escape it, one way or the other. So very briefly, just in a 2-minute answer, to understand, and I insist on calling them Daesh, because when we call them Islamic ISIS, it gives them some legitimacy. It tells them you got some credits and you're Islamic, when there's nothing Islamic about them. So we're going to call them Daesh, we're not going to call them ISIS, because they don't deserve the name ISIS, because apparently the I stands for Islam or Islamic, and there's nothing Islamic about them. So we're not going to give them the name that gives them any credit, to give them some name of Islam. So Daesh, to understand how they started, you have to go back in history, very far back. You have to go back to the time of Uthman ibn Affan and Ali ibn Abi Talib, and a group that appeared known as the Khawarij. And this group was a very, very, very evil group. The Prophet ﷺ said, if I live to see them, I will kill them the killing of Ad. And they were a very evil group. And one of the things that this evil group used to do is they used to try to kill and attack the Muslims who were not maybe very good Muslims, and they used to just not care. They used to leave the non-Muslims to go. And they used to say that any Muslim that does something really bad is not a Muslim, he's kafir. They used to make takfir, they used to say he's kafir if he does bad things. This group has existed in history, and it keeps on disappearing and reappearing. The Prophet ﷺ said, until the Dajjal will come from among them. So it keeps on disappearing and reappearing, disappearing, reappearing, disappearing, reappearing. How does it disappear? Because everybody gets frustrated with them, and then they get killed. Then again, the idea comes back up again, and it comes back. And there's some slight differences. The Khawarij are not the same as they were in the time of Ali ibn Abi Talib. For example, in the time of Ali, they used to tell the truth. They used to be known for telling the truth, even though they were very bad people, but they used to be known for telling the truth. Now the Khawarij are on par with the Rafidah for lying. They're from the worst of the liars. They lie through their teeth, even though in their opinion, if you lie, you're not Muslim. Anyways, one of the signs you can see about these people is that they bring no good to anything that they do. And everything they do, even though they talk about Islam and Sharia and Khilafah and all these words, Islamic words, but when you actually see what they actually do, they do nothing but ruin the earth and everything that is in it. They do nothing but ruin the earth. And it's nothing to do with Islam. For example, they have so much violence. And some of these guys, they've been playing too many computer games and watching too many horror movies and violent things and violence and whatever, and they think they can just go and do it in real life. They think that Islam came to just cut off people's limbs and destroy things and kill people and set people on fire and beat small children to death. They think that this is what Islam came with. Islam didn't come with this. The Prophet ﷺ didn't do this. There are punishments in Islam that have rules and regulations, not like I take a machete and the first person I see I chop off his hand. And Islam didn't come with this. Islam had a court system. In fact, when the Crusaders came to attack Salah ad-Din, rahimahullah, the people from Salah ad-Din's group, they were disgusted by the Crusaders' system of justice. They were like, these people are so backward. If they want to know if someone is guilty or not, they throw him in a lake or in the river or in the sea, and they see if he floats. If he floats, they kill him. And if he sinks, they let him go. And this is what the Crusaders used to do. The Muslims, they had a court system. They had rules. They had judges. They had testing. Is this person guilty or not guilty? As for Daesh, they are just like those Christian Crusaders who came. And they have no system, no honor, no guilty, not guilty, no court system, just like your neighbor will come around with a machete and hack off whatever he can find. That's not Islam. That's not Islam. And beheading videos. And subhanAllah, that's not from Islam. In Islam, you have sometimes people are killed in Islam under a legitimate system for a legitimate crime. But as for this guy tried to run away from being set on fire, so we're gonna celebrate him, mutilate him and celebrate it on YouTube. This is something that no Muslim would ever do. So these people have existed for a very long time, and they've always been the same: gruesome, violent. Most of their attacks are against Muslims. And most of their fighting is against Muslims primarily. Very rare they do anything against non-Muslims, just enough to keep themselves safe. And most of their destruction and attack is against Muslims. They claim to implement Sharia, but when you look at their actions, there is no Sharia in the actions that they do. And they'll continue to exist until Allah Azza wa Jal decrees for them to be cut off. And when they're cut off, another group will come. Because this is what the Prophet ﷺ said, they'll keep on coming until the Dajjal will come out among them. And these are a terrible, evil people. Wallahi. And when you read what they say about themselves, you're convinced they're evil. When you read what they themselves say about themselves, forget what we say about them. Maybe we're lying, maybe we're trying to brush over the topic so that we don't tell people how wonderful life is. They themselves are telling you what they do. I mean, their treatment of people, and if you look at how the Muslims used to treat the prisoners, they treat the prisoners so good. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ لَا نُرِيدُ مِنْكُمْ جَزَاءً وَلَا شُكُورًا. We feed the prisoners for the sake of Allah. We give them clothing for the sake of Allah. We look after them for the sake of Allah. And these guys, Allahul Musta'an, they torture them and they set them on fire and they, mutilate them and they do. And this is, they're proud of it. They're like, yeah, look at us implementing the Sharia. This is not the Sharia, ya akhwan. These are Islamic words and shaitani actions. And I remember they asked our Shaykh Abdul Muhsin Abbad, Hafidhahullah Ta'ala, when Osama bin Laden was killed, they said to him, Ya Shaykh, was he a mujahid? He said, yeah, he was a mujahid fi sabil al-shaytan. He was a mujahid who fought for the sake of the shaitan. And wallahi, the Shaykh, he told the truth. Because these people, whether they are Al-Qaeda or the Daesh or any of their cousins, wallahi, they are mujahideen fi sabil al-shaytan. Because ultimately, what is the point of fighting for Allah? To make the word of Allah high and the word of those who disbelieve low. As for these people, they make the actions of the shaitan high, and they make Islam and the picture of Islam and the reputation of Islam low. They make the word of Allah low, and they make the deeds of the shaitan high. So they are fi'lan, reality, mujahideen fi sabil al-shaitan. People who are fighting in the way of the shaitan, not in the way of Allah. And anyone who understands Islam and studies them and really understands what they're saying, understands the reality of this. They understand it and they're not frightened to say it. But what happens? They trick you with some clever videos and they tell you this is Sharia, this person stole, so we're going to chop off his hand. Reality is, there is no justice, there is no adl, there is no Islam, there is no Sharia, there is no hikmah, there is nothing except just violence against anybody that they can reach with their sword, or anyone they can reach with their knife. Walillahi alhamd. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has kept us away from them and kept us safe, that we don't have to, alhamdulillah, worry about them, but we just have to make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala suffices us against them, and that inshallah we will not have to meet with these kind of people, and we will not have to, inshallah, endure the evil that they come with, subhanallah. Okay. Now, because there's a question there's a Q&A for the young guys, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up to the young guys that are here. If you guys have any questions, inshallah, I'll also open the sisters' Q&A thing. I have it here. Maybe one of the Kalima volunteers will post something sometimes. So if any of the young guys have any questions, you guys are willing, it's your Q&A. Like you're willing to ask. Okay, maybe we'll answer this question on the paper. I think this is from one of the, maybe from one of the adults, but then maybe you guys can get some inspiration, inshallah. All right, medical insurance, is it allowed in Islam? In a basic sense, no. Medical insurance is not allowed in Islam in a basic sense. However, there may be some exceptions. Number one, if it is required by law, then what you have to do is take the minimum necessary to comply with the law. Take the minimum necessary, the cheapest that you can find, even if they give you nothing, doesn't matter, just to comply with the law. The other case is when it's not possible to get treatment any other way. So in sometimes the bills from the hospitals are so high because they all expect everyone is working via insurance, that you can't actually get any treatment, and you don't have an option to fly somewhere or go somewhere, or your parents don't have enough money to be able to pay for your treatment, or you as a worker and you don't have enough money, then in this case you ask the scholars, and you ask one of the scholars, this is my situation, should I take it or not? Because there may be a case where you can't get your right any other way, and Allah knows best. But if it's legal, if it's the law, then take the minimum necessary to fulfill the obligation. And please, can you explain at-tawakkul ala Allah? Tawakkul ala Allah it means to be reliant on Allah. And reliance on Allah comes between two things, okay? Number one extreme is you say, I rely on Allah and I don't do anything. So here I am, Allah make me rich. And then you go to sleep. Then you wake up the next day, oh Allah make me rich. Then you go to sleep all day. Then in the night you wake up, say Allah make me rich. Then you go to sleep all night. This is wrong. This is extreme. Why? Because you are saying you've got tawakkul, but we don't call this tawakkul. In Arabic we call this tawakkul. And it's not tawakkul. It's you're kidding, you're fooling yourself that you actually think that you are trusting in Allah, when in fact you're just lazy. The other side is the one who says, working day and night. Let me get some money, let me do this. And he's like working day and night, halal, haram, doesn't care. Just let me get it, let me just try. I'm going to try this, I'm going to try that. And he never believes that Allah is going to be the one to help him to do that. This is wrong. So what do you do? In Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. When you've made your effort, you've done your best, put your trust in Allah for the rest. That's tawakkul. Tawakkul is, look, I've done my best. For example, I need a job, I've applied, I've gone for interview, I'm still applying, I'm looking, I'm asking my friends. Allah, I left the rest to you. Yeah, that's what tawakkul is. And that's why with tawakkul, when you go in the car, you wear your seatbelt. Wearing your seatbelt is tawakkul. Not wearing your seatbelt, this is tawakkul. You don't have tawakkul. If you're saying, I don't wear my seatbelt, I don't care, Allah will keep me safe. No, because Allah created that seatbelt to keep you safe. So Allah is saying, okay, no problem. You want to be safe? I've made something for you to be safe. There it is. I don't want to use it. I'm trusting in you. But I made something for you to... No, I'm trusting in you. So no, Allah made this for you to be safe, so use it and then put your trust in Allah that whatever happens, Allah will keep you. Allah will keep you safe. Driving at really high speeds on the road, like above the speed limit, and driving like crazy, and then saying, Tawakkal ala Allah, I trust Allah to keep me safe. No, because what you're doing is you're betraying the trust. You're asking Allah, keep me safe, and then you're doing everything to make yourself not safe. Tawakkul is in the middle. You drive reasonably and you put your trust in Allah that Allah will keep you safe, inshallah. Okay, still to the young guys, before you leave it to the adults. You young guys got some questions? You guys in the back got any questions? Well, nothing?
What's your opinion on music?
Music, okay, that's a good question. I think it's not about my opinion on music, because my opinion about music is not important. I mean, whether I think it's good or not good, it's not really important. But what's important is, what did Allah say about music, and what did the Prophet ﷺ say about music? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in the Quran that music is haram. In the Quran. Not a lot of people know this. A lot of people think it's not in the Quran. And I'll quote you the ayah to be exact. The ayah is number 6 in Surah Luqman. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَشْتَرِي لَهْوَ الْحَدِيثِ لِيُضِلَّ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ وَيَتَّخِذَهَا هُزُوًا أُولَٰئِكَ لَهُمْ عَذَابٌ مُهِينٌ. Allah said, from mankind there are some people who purchase music and singing. Lahu al-hadith. Almost all the scholars of tafsir unanimously agree that lahu al-hadith in this ayah is music. To misguide people from the path of Allah without knowledge. And they take the signs of Allah as a joke. these people will have a big punishment in the hellfire, a humiliating punishment in the hellfire. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us it's haram. And if you think about it, what does music do? It takes you away from the path of Allah. Music changes how you think, changes how you feel. Your heart starts racing. You know, your limbs start moving, your head starts nodding. You're like, it changes what you do and it changes how you think. There are books on how music makes people change totally their behavior, totally change. And it takes you away from Allah, it stops you. You don't listen to music and Quran at the same time. Why not? The music drowns out the Quran. And when there's music in the heart, the Quran is not there. So this is something that music is very dangerous. And the lyrics of a lot of music songs, most songs, the lyrics are very bad. They have very haram things in them. But even if they didn't have haram in them, music would still be haram. And the Prophet ﷺ said, there will come to a group of my people from my ummah who will say that alcohol and music, or that they will say that alcohol and silk and music are halal. And they will declare, from among the things they will declare to be halal are alcohol and silk for men and music. And those people, they will end up being destroyed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what they say. So reality is music is haram. And it's bad for you. And the problem is these days that we give our kids the Islamic music. And it's just music. Let's not call it anashid, because it's not anashid, it's music. Inshad is reciting poetry. And if you've got 5 singers in the background who are all singing la 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 and doo-wop and shoo-wop, all of those people are singing music. And the guy at the front, he might be singing about Allah, but he's still singing music. There's a misconception. People say the voice is halal. Anything you do with the voice. Beatbox, like sing, do what you like, as long as it's with the voice. As long as you don't bring a violin, it's halal. Nobody said this from the scholars. This is what the juhal, the ignorant people say, the amatun nas. None of the scholars said this. Rather, the voice can be haram, just like the violin and the guitar can be haram. The voice can also be haram too. If you sing with it, if you sing a song with it, then it's haram. So if I take the latest song which everyone is singing, and I take the instruments out of the background, it's still haram. It doesn't matter if he's singing what he's singing about. It doesn't matter if he's singing about Allah. It doesn't matter. Ultimately, it's haram. What's not haram is reciting poetry, reciting the Quran with a beautiful voice. That's not haram. And try to replace that music try to replace it with Quran, try to replace it with even nice poetry. There's some very beautiful poetry with beautiful voices. But not these anashid of these artists. And anyone who calls himself a nasheed artist, you don't need to ask about them. The fact that they call themselves a nasheed artist, any better than they should call themselves a pop artist. That would be better. A pop artist who sings about Allah. That would be better than calling themselves a nasheed artist. And as for these groups, Muslim nasheed rap music and Islamic rap music, really? Is that even a term? Allahul Musta'an. There is reciting poetry and reciting Quran and everything else. And everything else is music. Whether it's with the voice or whether it's some guy singing in the background or whatever. SubhanAllah. These are, really, it's all the same. It takes you away from the path of Allah. It doesn't make you any closer. That's why nobody ever got closer to Allah by listening to music or by listening to the Islamic whatever versions of it. I will see if any of the shabab have any questions, then I will come back to you, inshallah. Kids, you got any ones? Guys, shabab, any questions or not? Otherwise we'll go to the brother. Yalla. Can you get a reward from Allah for playing a video game? Wallahi, I can't see a means for that, generally. You can get some points on your whatever Xbox Live account, but I don't think you can get any any rewards. Because ultimately, for something to be rewarded, it has to be beloved to Allah. So for example, it has to be something that has a benefit to your ibadah, to your worship. Now it's okay because video games could be halal. Some are halal and some are haram. For the record, Grand Theft Auto is completely haram. And there is no way for you to make it halal. And you cannot say that when I see a Muslim woman in it, I don't kill her. As one of the Shabab said. He said, it's okay, I made it halal. If I see someone who looks like they're a Muslim, I don't hurt them. Akhwan, GTA cannot be halal, no matter how you play it. But some video games could be halal. Some video games could be halal, inshallah. If they don't have any haram elements in them, like killing Muslims, or like doing something haram, like stealing, or zina, whatever. And if they don't have anything really haram in them, it could be halal. But where is the link to ibadah? And where is the thing in the video game that's going to make your prayer better, or that's going to make your sadaqah better, or that's whatever? Even from the point of view of training your mind and training your body, it doesn't train your body. You don't play a video game and then become really strong and you're like a good, strong Muslim that can defend Islam and so on. Like, you don't get that from playing a video game. And also, mentally, you don't really get that much either from play. You might get fast reactions, but you don't get much in terms of mentally either. So I don't really see a means for ajr, but inshallah, if you play the right games, inshallah, it's not haram, as long as you don't let your time get overtaken too much so that you no longer, your time goes. As long as you're careful with your time and you're careful about what you play, then inshallah it could be halal, depending on what you're playing and depending on what it is. But sadly, a lot of these games that have a lot of bad language in them, a lot of unnecessary violence. Me, I don't mind a shooting game. If I'm a soldier in the game and I'm shooting a soldier in the game, that kind of makes sense. It's okay. It's within the realm of norm. But if it's just about going around shooting everybody, then that's gratuitous violence. That's haram. There's nothing good in that. I'm not talking about these little games where people play against each other on the opposite team. That's okay. But where there's the purpose of the game, the single player mode of the game is just to kill everybody, or steal things from everybody. That's not really halal. But as for if it makes sense, some game that is reasonable, then there's nothing wrong if it has some shooting in it or something like that, as long as it is reasonable and there's no haram elements in it. It's not like the purpose, the mission of the game is to kill the Muslims. And some of them there are. Some of the games, the mission of the game is to kill as many Muslims as possible. So that's not the kind of thing that the kids should be allowed to play. So parents got to use a bit of discretion about what's allowed and what's not allowed. And even if the game is halal, you got to think about your time as well. How much time do your kids spend on it? Because games are meant to be addictive, and smartphones and tablets are meant to be addictive. Allahu musta'an. I think time is kind of getting towards the end now. We'll wrap it up, inshallah. So kept you guys for a long time. I've really enjoyed being able to do it. I appreciate the questions, because the questions were really good. Wallahi, the questions we got from the camp were excellent. So inshallah, we'll record this video, and hopefully the guys at Kalima will share it with the people who attended the camp, inshallah, for those of them who couldn't come. So we finished answering their questions. On the way out, inshallah ta'ala, we'll answer anyone else who has any extras. And Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best. Wassalatu wassalam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.